Welcome to your sleep story. I'm so glad you're here tonight. Whatever this day was, however long it felt, however much it carried, it is behind you now, completely behind you. You made it through, and that is everything. So let's begin. Before I take you anywhere tonight, I want to count you down from 10 to 1. And as I count, I want you to allow yourself to sink just a little deeper into wherever you are right now. Feel the weight of your body. Feel what is beneath you, holding you. And with each number, just let go a little more. 10. Allow your eyes to close. Gently, completely. There is nothing you need to see right now. 9. Feel your shoulders and let them drop as far as they want to go. 8. A slow breath in through the nose. 7. And all the way out. 6. Your hands. Feel them opening. Whatever you've been holding today, you can put it down now. 5. Your jaw is soft. Your face is soft. 4. Your legs are heavy, warm. 3. You're drifting, not asleep yet, but moving that way. 2. The day is behind you, completely and entirely behind you. 1. And now, tonight's sleep story, the relaxation. Before we go anywhere, I want to stay here with you for a moment. Just here, just now, because this moment, this exact moment right now, where you are lying in the quiet, deserves a little attention, a little kindness. Take a breath in for me, from the very bottom of the belly. Good, and let it go. And as you breathe out, I want you to imagine that everything you were carrying today, every worry, every unfinished thought, every heavy thing is just leaving with that breath, just drifting away. You don't have to solve anything tonight. You don't have to figure anything out. You don't have to be anything other than exactly what you are right now. A person who deserves rest, a person who deserves sleep, because you do, you really do. Whatever happened today, however hard it felt, however much it carried, you made it through. You are here, and that is enough. That is more than enough. You are safe, and you are here. Bring your awareness gently to your feet now. Just notice them and allow them to soften. The toes uncurling, the arches releasing. All the small held tension of the day simply letting go. Let that softness travel upward, through the calves, through the knees, the thighs. All of it warm, all of it heavy, all of it resting now. Your lower back, your hips. Allow yourself to feel the surface beneath you taking your weight completely, fully. You don't have to hold yourself up anymore. The water has you. The slow river has you. The belly soft. The chest soft. The heart beating steadily as it always has, as it always will. Your shoulders dropping, your arms heavy and warm, your hands open and still, the neck long and loose, and your face, let the jaw go. Let the forehead smooth. Let the eyes be completely still behind their lids. There you are, from the top of your head to the tips of your toes, completely soft, completely warm, completely at rest. You've done beautifully. Now, let me take you somewhere the river is so wide and so still that the red gum trees on the opposite bank are perfectly doubled in the water below them. And a white houseboat sits moored in a quiet bend with its lights just beginning to glow amber in the dusk. And the only sounds are the river's own slow breathing and the last birds of the day settling into the river gums above. Come with me, the road to the river. Imagine a road in the Riverina, the inland of southeastern Australia. Not the coast, not the dramatic country of the mountains or the outback, but the vast, gentle, largely flat basin of the Murray-Darling River system, the agricultural heartland of the continent, where the sky is enormous and the light, in the long Australian summer evenings, has a particular quality that painters who have tried to capture it consistently describe as unlike the light anywhere else on Earth. Warm, dusty, the particular amber gold of an interior Australian afternoon, carrying in it the color of the dry grass and the dry earth, and the eucalyptus leaves releasing their oils in the heat. Everything sun-baked to a palette of ochres and golds, and the blue-gray of the gum trees that line every creek and river channel in this whole great drainage system. The road runs through wheat paddocks, their stubble pale gold after the harvest, and through occasional stands of native vegetation, mallee scrub, its multiple trunks twisting together in the drought-tolerant way of a plant that has evolved across millennia of this landscape's very specific, very demanding conditions. Then the river, it appears almost without warning, as the Murray often does from inland approaches. The country simply ending, the bank dropping away, and there, below you, wider than expected, quieter than expected, moving with a barely perceptible current that belies the enormous volume of water it carries, is the Murray, Australia's longest river, the river that has shaped more of this continent's human history. Its exploration, its agriculture, its irrigation, its entire interior economy, than any other single geographical feature. You park at the small public reserve at the river's edge. You walk down to the wooden jetty, and there, moored in the reeds, a little upstream from the jetty, its white hull reflecting softly in the brown-green river water. The houseboat, it is not new, 12 meters long, perhaps, its hull a broad, flat-bottomed design, specifically suited to the Murray's shallow, snag-filled navigation. The shallow draft that allows it to sit in water that would ground a keel boat. The wide beam that provides the stability needed for comfortable living aboard. The superstructure is mostly wood and glass. A wide covered deck at the front, screened on 3 sides against the insects that are, depending on the season, the Murray's most insistent natural feature. A main living area behind it, with large louvered windows folded open to catch whatever breeze the river provides. And behind that, the sleeping cabin, the galley kitchen, the small bathroom, white paint, going slightly gray at the waterline from the river's own particular staining quality. The Murray carries a particular load of tannins from the decaying river gum leaves in its upper reaches, giving the water its characteristic brown-green color and leaving, on any hull moored in it long enough, a tide line that no amount of scrubbing entirely removes. A small aluminium dinghy hangs on davits at the stern, solar panels on the roof, a fishing rod propped against the rear rail. On the front deck, 2 canvas chairs and a small table, still holding the afternoon's empty cups from whatever tea or cold drink the day's slower hours required. Smoke very faintly from the galley's range vent, something cooking inside, the smell of it reaching you before you have stepped aboard. The gangplank creaks under your foot. The houseboat shifts very slightly on its mooring lines. You step aboard. The first breath, the river first. The Murray's smell is entirely its own. Not the salt mineral smell of the ocean, not the clean mountain stream smell of snowmelt rivers, but something altogether earthier, warmer, more specific. Eucalyptus, the river gum forests that line both banks release their oils constantly into the air, and the warm, slightly medicinal, entirely distinctive smell of eucalyptus. Not the sharp, clinical smell of an imported oil, but the complex, layered, warmer fragrance of living eucalyptus trees in the heat of an Australian afternoon, releasing their oils slowly into the air above the water, is simply the smell of being here, of being on or near the Murray. Beneath the eucalyptus, the river itself, a slightly muddy, slightly vegetal, entirely benign smell of fresh water, carrying its load of organic material from the river's vast catchment. The smell of the interior of the continent, distilled and transported downstream, arriving here in the smell of the water lapping against the hull, and inside cooking something simple on the galley stove, its smell drifting through the louvered windows and across the front deck with the same ease that the river breeze moves through every opening in this deliberately permeable structure. Garlic, perhaps, the smell of a simple camp-style cooking, nothing elaborate, a meal that acknowledges where it is being eaten, on the water at dusk, in a place where simplicity seems not a limitation, but an obvious choice. You sit in one of the canvas chairs on the front deck. The river moves slowly in front of you. The last light is doing something extraordinary to the red gum trees on the far bank. The river itself, the Murray. Let me tell you something about this river, because it deserves considerably more than its relatively modest international fame would suggest. It is the longest river in Australia, flowing approximately 2,500 kilometers from its source in the Australian Alps, where it begins as a clear, cold mountain stream, to its mouth at Encounter Bay in South Australia, where it meets the Southern Ocean through a system of lakes and lagoons that have their own separate ecological significance. Its total catchment, the area of land whose rainfall eventually drains into the Murray-Darling system, covers approximately 1 million square kilometers, roughly 14% of the entire Australian continent, making it, by catchment area, one of the significant river systems of the world, despite its relatively modest flow by global standards. Modest flow because this is a dry continent. The Australian interior receives relatively little rainfall, and what rainfall it does receive is highly variable. The Murray's volume fluctuates enormously between drought years and flood years. Between the years when the alpine snowmelt feeds its upper reaches generously, and the years when it struggles to maintain a continuous surface flow in its lower sections. But it flows. It has always flowed. It was flowing when the first humans reached this continent somewhere between 50 and 60,000 years ago. The earliest Australians, finding this river system, recognizing its significance as a reliable water source in a dry land, building their lives and their cultures along its banks across an almost unimaginable span of time. The River Murray flows through the traditional country of many Aboriginal nations: the Yorta Yorta, the Wiradjuri, the Ngarrindjeri, the Barkindji, and others. Peoples whose connection to this river extends back across tens of thousands of years, whose knowledge of its fish, its waterholes, its seasonal flooding patterns, its navigation, represents one of the most detailed and most durable bodies of ecological knowledge ever accumulated about any single river system on Earth. This knowledge was being accumulated and refined here for 50,000 years before any European boat first pushed into the Murray's brown-green water in 1830. The river carries all of this in its brown water, in its slow current, in the red gum trees that have grown along its banks since long before any of that human history, and that will, in all probability, grow here long after the last houseboat has made its last journey downstream. Margaret. She is 63 years old. Her name is Margaret. She has been living aboard this houseboat on this particular stretch of the Murray for 11 years, since she retired from a career as a secondary school art teacher in a regional city, several hours' drive from this particular bend in the river. Since her marriage of 31 years ended, since her 2 daughters left for their own adult lives in Melbourne and Brisbane, since she found herself, for the first time in her adult life, with complete freedom to choose where and how she lived. She chose this, the houseboat, the river, this bend specifically, because she had holidayed here twice before, once as a child with her parents, once with her own family when her daughters were young, and because both times, returning to the city after a few days on the water, she had felt the particular, sharp reluctance of someone leaving a place they had not finished understanding. She bought the houseboat from a retiring couple who had lived aboard for 6 years. She moved aboard the following spring. The first year was harder than she expected. The practical demands of houseboat living, the isolation that was more complete than a week-long holiday had suggested, the learning curve of managing a vessel, even a moored one, through the Murray's varying moods across the seasons. The second year was easier. The third year, she understood for the first time, properly and fully, why she had come. She is in the galley now, finishing the evening's simple cooking, a pasta of some kind, judging by the smell, with whatever came from the small vegetable garden she keeps in pots on the rear deck, supplemented by whatever the nearest riverside town's small supermarket provided on her last supply run 3 days ago. She cooks contentedly. The louvres are open. The river is visible from the galley window. It is always visible from almost every window of this boat. This is, in her view, the whole point. The red GUMS, the river red gum, Eucalyptus camaldulensis, the dominant tree of the Murray-Darling River system, the tree that lines virtually every bank of the Murray and its tributaries, the tree whose particular, ancient, water-adapted presence defines the visual character of the inland Australian river landscape as completely as the cypress defines the Tuscan hillside or the birch defines the Finnish lake. The river red gum is a very old kind of tree, not individual trees. Individual red gums rarely live more than 1,000 years, and most considerably less. But as a species, as a form, as a biological strategy, Eucalyptus camaldulensis is extraordinarily ancient, its genus having evolved on the Australian continent across tens of millions of years, adapting with remarkable success to the continent's increasingly arid climate as the landscape changed around it. The specific adaptation that makes the river red gum possible here, that allows it to grow in extraordinary density along this river's banks, while the surrounding country supports only dry scrub and grassland, is a root system that reaches down reliably to the permanent water table beneath the river's banks, allowing the tree to draw water from below during the long dry periods when surface moisture is entirely absent. The tree has essentially solved the problem of the Australian interior by going underground for its water while presenting its full, generous canopy above. This is, in its way, a form of patient intelligence as remarkable as any human craft. The red gums opposite Margaret's mooring are old, their trunks massive, pale gray-white, their bark smooth and exfoliating in the characteristic manner of the genus, their branches extending in the wide, irregular, deeply asymmetric patterns that old eucalyptus trees develop across their long lives. No two branches the same angle, no two major limbs the same proportion. The whole tree's structure carrying the record of every wind and drought and flood it has survived in the particular, individual way its branches have grown and adapted. In this evening's last light, the red gum's pale trunks glow, almost luminous, the particular quality that painters of the Australian interior have always struggled to capture. The way a river red gum in the late afternoon light seems to generate its own warm, amber glow from within its own pale bark. The color somewhere between gold and white, and the particular pinkish orange of sunburned stone. The trees and their reflections in the still brown water below, both equally present, both equally lit. The sound of the Murray at dusk. Let me stay here on the front deck and simply listen. The river first, not silent, but the Murray's sound. In a quiet bend like this one, in still evening conditions, is more felt than heard. A barely perceptible current movement against the hull, the very faint gurgle of water finding its way around the roots of a submerged red gum on the near bank. The occasional, barely audible tick of the hull's fiberglass, expanding very slightly as the air temperature drops from the day's heat. The birds, this is the most immediate, most layered, most specifically Australian element of the Murray's evening soundscape. Corellas, the little corellas, Cactua sanguinea, that roost in the river red gums in enormous, raucous, spectacularly undignified numbers every evening. Their arrival always beginning perhaps 30 minutes before full dark. Their calls absolutely impossible to confuse with anything else. A cacophony of squeaking and squabbling, and the particular, loud, completely unsentimental sound of several hundred cockatoos, having what can only be described as a vigorous conversation about where everyone is going to sleep. They arrive now, over the next 20 minutes, in waves, groups of 20 or 30 from upstream, then another group from the opposite bank, then a larger mob from somewhere further off. The whole community gradually assembling in the red gums, directly above Margaret's houseboat, with the determined, noisy, entirely community-minded purpose of the very sociable animal they are. Margaret has heard this arrival every single evening for 11 years. She still finds it funny. Almost every evening, beneath the corellas, a kookaburra, somewhere back from the bank, giving its own evening declaration, the familiar, extraordinary laughing call that, to anyone raised in Australia, is simply the sound of the end of a day. And beneath both, the faint, continuous, barely audible lap of the river itself, moving its brown-green water downstream at its own steady, unhurried pace, exactly as it has moved it for millions of years before this particular evening, and will move it for millions after. The evening light, the last 40 minutes of daylight on the Murray, are, for anyone who has spent time on this river, a genuinely distinctive experience. The light comes in low from the west, across the flat, open country that stretches away from both banks, arriving at the water's surface at an angle that catches the river's own particular color and amplifies it. The brown-green of the Murray in ordinary daylight becomes, in this evening light, something richer. The tannins in the water catching the low sun and glowing a deep, warm amber brown. The surface alive with the moving, broken reflections of the red gums above and the sky beyond. The whole river seeming, for these 40 minutes, to be lit from within rather than from without. The red gum trunks, as mentioned, glow. The dry grass on the banks, catching the same low light, goes from its ordinary pale gold to something closer to orange. Even the dust, the fine red-brown dust of the inland Australian landscape, catches the evening light and hangs in the warm air above the banks in a thin, luminous haze that gives the whole scene a quality of soft, suspended gold that has no easy equivalent in any other landscape's light. This is the light that Australian landscape painters from the 19th century, colonial painters, who first attempted to capture it through the Heidelberg School and beyond, to contemporary artists still wrestling with the same fundamental problem, have always found simultaneously compelling and resistant to reproduction. It is too warm, too specific, too much itself, and too little of anything that already exists in the European artistic vocabulary, from which Australian painting initially drew its techniques. Margaret, who spent her career teaching art, thinks about this occasionally, watching the evening light on her river, not analytically, simply as someone who has spent a professional lifetime looking carefully at how light is captured, and who now finds herself living inside one of the most technically difficult light conditions the Australian continent produces. She is not attempting to paint it. She is simply in it. This, she has decided, is better. The galley, Margaret's kitchen, modest, the constraints of houseboat living, limited storage, limited fresh water for cooking, the need to keep weight distribution sensible, the occasional days between supply runs when the pantry's contents require a degree of creative interpretation, have produced, across 11 years, a cooking style that is considerably simpler than anything she practiced in her previous land-based life. This simplicity pleases her. She did not know it would. She had cooked for most of her adult life with the mild anxiety of a person performing a necessary task for which they feel imperfectly equipped, adequate, reliable, but always slightly conscious of the performance of it. On the houseboat, alone, with no one to perform for, the cooking has settled into something different, a practical, honest, pleasurable engagement with what is available, without the weight of expectation. Tonight's pasta, river vegetables from the pot garden, a few cherry tomatoes, the last of the season's basil, a small zucchini that has gone slightly past its peak, but is still entirely edible, olive oil, salt, the particular satisfaction of a meal that exactly matches the place it is being eaten. Simple, direct, warm, requiring nothing beyond itself to be complete. She eats on the front deck, the Corellas having finally settled into their own evening's rest, the river darkening now, the red gums losing their glow, the first stars appearing in the strip of sky visible between the two banks' tree canopies. What the river, TACHES, Margaret has thought, across 11 years of this particular life, about what the river has taught her, not in any grand or systematic way. She is not a person given to systematic philosophizing, preferring, by temperament and training, the particular to the general. But certain things have become clear across these years, in a way they were not clear before. The river teaches patience differently from most other teachers of patience. The Murray's patience is not the patience of a stone, which simply endures. It is not the patience of Fernand's salt, which works invisibly and cannot be rushed. It is something more active than either. The river's patience is the patience of sustained, continuous, low-level movement in one direction, slow enough to seem almost still, always too slow to seem to be doing anything particularly decisive, and yet, across any significant span of time, doing something immense, moving the water of an entire continental drainage system, carving and reshaping its own banks and channels, transporting material from the mountains to the sea. 11 years on this river have taught Margaret something about this kind of patience. The patience of continuous, unhurried forward movement, not dramatic, not obviously decisive on any given day, but cumulative. The river also teaches attention to the small. In a landscape, this apparently uniform, flat, brown-green water, pale eucalyptus trunks, dry grass, blue sky, the details become everything. The particular way this morning's mist lay along the water's surface, the specific species of heron that has been fishing the same shallow near the mooring for the past 2 weeks, the particular quality of today's light compared to yesterday's. The Murray, by being large and steady and largely unchanging in its broad outlines, makes visible every small variation within those outlines. And Margaret, living here, has developed a fineness of attention to these small variations that she considers the most valuable single thing this life has given her. She sees things she did not see before, not just on the river, everywhere. The river taught her how. The wildlife. Let me tell you about some of the creatures that share this stretch of river with Margaret. The azure kingfisher, small, almost impossibly vivid. Its back the deep, electric blue of the Baltic, amber's fluorescence. Its front a warm orange. Its beak disproportionately long, designed for the precise, high-velocity dive into the water that is its only method of catching food. Margaret has seen it on its particular perch. A thin, overhanging branch about 30 meters upstream from her mooring. Approximately once every 3 days, on average, across 11 years. She knows which days it will come, not with certainty, but with the approximate accuracy of someone who has learned, through sustained observation, the rough rhythm of one particular animal's behavior in one particular small territory. When it dives, the splash is barely perceptible. The bird entering the water with a precision that suggests both absolute confidence and something close to scientific knowledge of the physics involved. It reemerges in the same instant, or so it seems, a small silver fish held crosswise in its long beak, already repositioning the catch as it returns to its branch, swallowing it head first. The whole event takes perhaps 4 seconds. Margaret has watched it several hundred times. It still stops her every single time. The platypus, less frequently seen than the kingfisher, but present, Margaret has counted 15 confirmed sightings over 11 years, always in the early morning, always in the calmer sections of the bank, just upstream from her mooring. The animal's extraordinary, implausible appearance never quite failing to produce in her the same mild astonishment that its discovery once produced in the European scientists who first encountered a specimen and initially believed it to be a clever taxidermic fake. The Murray turtles, more commonly seen, their dark shells just visible at the surface when they come up to breathe. Their ancient, unhurried existence, carrying something of the same quality as the amber inclusions on Aldona's shelf. Creatures whose basic form has remained essentially unchanged across an almost incomprehensible span of geological time. The yellow-bellied black snake, glimpsed twice on the bank. The enormous Murray cod, whose presence in the deeper water directly beneath the mooring Margaret infers from the occasional, barely visible disturbance at the surface in the still of early morning. She has never caught one, her fishing being the relaxed, largely expectation-free kind that suits the river's own pace. This stretch of brown-green water is, in its quiet, murky, apparently featureless way, one of the most ecologically rich environments Margaret has ever lived within. She did not know this when she came. The river taught her. The notebook in the galley drawer, alongside the boat's log and the maintenance records, and a well-worn river chart of this particular section. A notebook, not unlike the notebooks of so many other careful keepers on these journeys. Margaret's river notebook. She began it in her second year aboard. After the first year's harder adjustments were largely behind her, and she found herself wanting to write down what she was observing, not formally, not scientifically, simply because the observations seemed worth preserving in some form beyond her own memory. The kingfisher sightings dated, with brief notes on conditions and behavior. The platypus encounters, the seasonal changes she has documented, the first flowering of the river Corella's preferred tree, which she has managed across 11 years to narrow to a fairly reliable 2-week window in late spring. The exact dates on which the river's water level has risen and fallen with seasonal variation. The dates of the first and last sightings of various migratory bird species. The weather observations that any boat dweller accumulates. The river's own, whether being subtly different from the surrounding lands, whether in ways that matter practically for mooring security and deck comfort, and the quality of the evenings. And interspersed with these observations, occasional more personal entries, reflections, responses to difficult days, or particularly beautiful ones. The kind of writing that a person does not begin with any intention of sharing, but that, across enough years of faithful practice, becomes a record of something genuinely worth having, not publishable, not intended for anyone, simply true. The night sky. After eating, Margaret moves her canvas chair to the bow. The stars, the Murray Valley, this far inland, this far from any major city, offers a night sky of considerable quality. Not quite the absolute darkness of the central Australian desert, where the Milky Way casts a perceptible shadow, but approaching it, the Southern Cross, low in the south, its four main stars unmistakable to anyone raised in this hemisphere, the navigational reference of the Pacific and Indian Ocean sailors, the symbol on the Australian and New Zealand flags, the most frequently consulted and most commonly visible of all the Southern Hemisphere's distinctive constellations. Canopus, the second brightest star in the entire night sky, blazing in the southwest, a star so significant to Aboriginal Australian astronomical traditions that multiple nations developed complex ceremonial and navigational practices around it. A star that the ancient Egyptians could see from their northerly latitude and considered sacred. The same star that Greek sailors called the Star of Canopus, and that Margaret simply calls remarkable. The Milky Way, thickening toward the galactic center in Sagittarius, its densest section visible above the tree line as a pale, broad band of light, whose true nature, hundreds of billions of individual stars, too distant and too numerous to resolve separately, is one of those facts that the mind accepts intellectually and struggles, standing beneath the actual sky, to feel the full weight of. The river below the houseboat mirrors a portion of this sky. Brown-green by day, the water is in full darkness, a second sky, slightly rippled where the very light current disturbs its surface, breaking the star reflections into moving fragments, then settling them again as the current shifts. Margaret looks up, then down, then up again. She has had this same view from this same chair on perhaps 3,000 similar evenings. She has never decided which version of the stars she prefers. The morning she is thinking toward, though the evening is what carries tonight's story. Margaret's mind, in the way of someone who lives closely with a seasonal rhythm, moves forward sometimes toward tomorrow's particular morning. The Murray's mornings are, for her, the best part of the day. Earlier than most people would choose, the light begins. Out here, well before the sun actually clears the eastern horizon, the sky warming from deep blue through pearl gray, through the particular luminous pale gold that precedes the actual sunrise. The mist, most mornings, lying along the water's surface in layers, the warm water cooling in the night air, the condensation forming a white, knee-high blanket that moves very slowly downstream with the current, through which the red gum trunks emerge like presences rather than simply trees. The birds, the corellas waking, the morning equivalent of the evening's raucous assembly, equally chaotic, equally cheerful, equally complete in their commitment to the view that dawn should be announced at full volume. The kingfisher, possibly on its branch, the platypus, possibly in the shallows, Margaret with her tea, in the same canvas chair, watching whatever the morning brings. This is, she has decided across 11 years, one of the genuinely good things about the life she has chosen. Not the mornings themselves, exactly, though the mornings are extraordinary. The fact of having built a life in which such mornings are simply the ordinary, expected beginning of any given day. This is wealth, not the kind that is counted or compared or mentioned in any conversation about success. Simply this, a life shaped around what is most worth waking up for. The paddle steamer history. Let me tell you something about what this river once was, and what that history left behind in the landscape around Margaret's mooring. Because the Murray's story is one of the more remarkable chapters in Australian economic history. For approximately 60 years, from around 1855 to the beginning of the First World War, the Murray River was one of the busiest inland waterways in the world. Paddle steamers, dozens of them, eventually hundreds, the flat-bottomed, shallow-draft, wood-fired steam vessels that the Murray's specific characteristics demanded, carrying wool and wheat and livestock and goods and passengers up and down this system, supplying the inland stations and carrying their produce to the railheads and ports, forming the primary economic artery of the Australian interior at a time when railways were still sparse and roads were tracks. At the height of the paddle steamer era, this quiet bend where Margaret moors her houseboat would have been anything but quiet, would have seen vessels passing, their paddle wheels churning the brown water white, their tall funnels trailing, with smoke from the red gum fuel they consumed in enormous quantities, their captains navigating by the accumulated knowledge of the rivers, constantly shifting snags and sandbars that only experience and careful attention could provide. The river red gums were cut heavily during this period to fuel the paddle steamers. Much of what is here now represents the regrowth of the past century. The trees along this stretch, considerably younger than the enormous specimens further upstream that escaped the worst of the cutting. Some old paddle steamers still exist, restored, mostly, operating as tourist vessels or museum pieces at various towns along the river. Margaret has taken passage on one of them. Once, during the years she has been aboard the houseboat, a day trip from the nearest large river town, standing on the deck as the great paddle wheel churned the same water she looks at every morning, trying to feel what it would have been like to make this journey in the years when the paddle steamer was not a curiosity, but simply the way this country moved. She could almost feel it. The river helps. The river is the same river, the same brown-green water, the same red gums, the same bend. Everything else has changed. The river simply continues. The morning ritual. Let me tell you briefly about what Margaret's mornings actually look like, because they form the counterpart to this evening's gentle settling. She rises early, before 6 usually, without an alarm. The light, even before the sun clears the tree line, changes the quality of the darkness in the sleeping cabin enough to nudge her from sleep without any mechanical assistance. She makes tea, not coffee, despite having drunk coffee for most of her adult life. The houseboat years produced, unexpectedly, a conversion to tea as the morning's first drink, partly because the kettle's simple, direct heat suited the galley's modest cooking capacity, and partly because she found, gradually, that the slower ritual of tea-making matched the mornings better than the more urgent preparation of coffee. She carries it to the front deck. She sits, the mist, if there is mist, and there is mist, some form of it, on perhaps half of the mornings. More in the colder months, lies along the water, and among the lower trunks of the red gums, thinning as the light increases, burning off slowly as the sun's first direct rays reach the river. The Corellas wake, first one, then several, then the entire assembled community in a sequence that, once begun, takes perhaps 10 minutes to reach its full, magnificent, unreserved morning volume. The Kingfisher arrives, if it is going to arrive, in the calm before the Corella's peak volume. It seems to prefer the brief, quiet window between the first bird sounds and the full community's daily re-announcement of itself. Margaret watches all of this. She drinks her tea. She writes a few lines in the notebook, sometimes. Sometimes she simply watches. Either way, the morning is received rather than merely gotten through. And this distinction, having learned to receive the mornings of this particular river in this particular place, is, she believes, one of the most significant things the houseboat years have changed in her. The NEIGHBORNG houseboat, a kilometer upstream, around the bend, another houseboat is moored, Margaret's nearest neighbor on the river. She has never met its owner, a retired farmer named Bill. She has been told by the boat shed operator in the nearest town, because the kilometer of river between them, combined with the practical habits of people who have both chosen a somewhat solitary life on the water, has simply never produced the occasion. But she knows the houseboat's lights. She can see them just barely around the bend when she sits on the bow on clear evenings. A faint amber glow through the trees, low along the water, visible for perhaps 40 minutes before the bend's angle finally hides them entirely. She finds a specific, quiet comfort in those lights. Not company exactly. She is past needing company in the conventional sense. Simply the knowledge that someone else is out here, similarly moored, similarly watching a similar river, similarly choosing, at the end of a similar day, this particular life of water and trees and stars and morning, mist and Corellas. She has never needed to meet Bill. The lights are sufficient. two small amber points of light, one upstream from the other, both reflecting on the same brown-green water, both belonging to people who have decided, for their own separate reasons, that this river in this country is worth building a life around. The river's first peoples. Let me return once more to what this river is in its fullest possible sense, because the natural history and the European settler history I have described so far represent only a small portion of the Murray's actual story. The Yorta people, the Wiradjuri, the Ngarrindjeri, the Barkhanji, and many other nations whose traditional country encompasses the Murray and its tributaries. Peoples who have lived in relationship with this river for somewhere between 50 and 60,000 years, across a span of time that makes the paddle steamer era feel like last Tuesday. The Murray was not discovered by the European explorers who first navigated it in the 1830s. It was known, it had been known for longer than any of the civilizations that produced those European explorers had themselves existed. The river's fish, its seasonal flooding patterns, its water bird movements, its plant communities, all of this knowledge accumulated across tens of thousands of years of careful, sustained, intimate observation by the peoples who called this country home, was more complete and more detailed than anything the European explorers brought with them, and considerably more than anything that formal ecology has so far managed to reconstruct. Margaret thinks about this. She thinks about it particularly on the mornings when she is sitting with her tea and the mist is on the water and the corellas have not yet woken. The river at its most quiet, its most ancient seeming, the landscape around her carrying something that feels, in these particular moments of stillness, like the presence of a much longer and much more patient history than her own 11 years here, or the 200 years of European settlement can account for. She is a visitor to this river, in the deepest sense of the word. A welcome one, she hopes. A careful one, she intends. But a visitor, this thought does not diminish her love for the place. If anything, it deepens it. The recognition that what she loves is not simply a landscape, but a relationship between a landscape and its people. A relationship of extraordinary depth and duration. And that her own presence here is a small, recent, genuinely minor addition to something enormously larger and older than herself. The night sounds continue. Later now, well after dark, the river's nighttime soundscape has settled into something quite different from the dusk's Corella assembly. The frogs, the Murray Valley's frogs, begin their own evening chorus well after the birds have settled, and it is one of the more extraordinary sounds available anywhere in the Australian inland. A dense, layered, species-varied chorus that rises from the reeds and the shallow margins of the river in waves, different species contributing their different calls to a collective sound that can, on warm, still nights, be genuinely, pleasurably overwhelming in its richness and its completeness. The green tree frog's slow, deep, resonant call, the smaller, higher-pitched calls of several reed frog species, the extraordinary, almost mechanical sound of the striped marsh frog. Its call so unlike what most people expect of a frog that first-time visitors to the Murray at night sometimes mistake it for some small piece of riverbank machinery, all of them together, rising and falling with the slight temperature variations and the breeze's small fluctuations, producing a chorus that is simultaneously ancient. These same frog species have been making this same sound along this river for millions of years, and entirely alive to this specific night, this specific temperature, this specific level of moisture in the air. Margaret has slept to this chorus for 11 years. It is as comfortable to her now as the sound of the river itself, the two of them together, the river's barely perceptible current, and the frog's continuous, layered, patient chorus form the specific, irreplaceable lullaby of this particular stretch of the Murray. On this particular kind of still, warm, Australian inland night, the houseboat in the dark. Late now, the Corellas have been asleep for several hours. Their earlier collective noise resolved completely into the deep, uncanny quiet of hundreds of sleeping birds. Margaret's lights are off. She is sleeping in the sleeping cabin at the stern. The very faint rocking of the houseboat on the currents, minimal disturbance, her nightly cradle. The river moves very slowly, its brown-green water carrying the tannins of 1,000 river red gum forests upstream, moving them steadily toward the sea. The same process that has been moving this same material through this same channel in one form or another for millions of years. The red gums on the opposite bank stand in the dark. Their reflections in the water are invisible, the river too dark, the sky too overcast for the reflection to form. But the trees are there. They are always there. The dinghy at the stern bumps very softly against the hull, once, twice, then settles. A fish breaks the surface, briefly. Somewhere upstream, a soft splash, quickly gone, the water closing over it immediately and completely. The houseboat sits at its mooring, its lines holding it gently against the slight pull of the river. The solar panels on the roof wait for tomorrow's sun. The fishing rod leans against the rear rail. The vegetable pots sleep on the back deck. The notebook is in the drawer. All of it here, the river moving beneath it all. Steadily, slowly, without hurry, as it has moved beneath every boat, every canoe, every log crossing, every morning swimmer, every fisher, every person who has come to this river across the long span of time that this river has been here. You are drifting. You are still on the front deck, in a sense, or somewhere very like it, the river dark and moving very slowly below you. The red gums standing in their pale patience on the opposite bank, the stars partly visible through gaps in the cloud above, the Corellas sleeping in their trees. Margaret is sleeping, The river is moving. The houseboat sits gently at its mooring. All of it here, all of it holding you. Your breathing has slowed to match the river's own steady, unhurried current. Always moving, never rushing, covering its enormous distances, not by urgency, but by the patient, cumulative effect of continuous, gentle, entirely reliable motion. This is what the Murray offers, if you allow yourself to receive it, even only in imagination, even only for this one quiet hour before your own sleep arrives. The reassurance of something that moves steadily and has always moved steadily, that covers enormous distances without drama, that sustains an extraordinary richness of life along its banks precisely because it continues. Because it simply continues through drought and flood and every kind of ordinary day. The same brown-green water moving downstream with the same patient, undramatic, entirely dependable persistence. You do not need to go anywhere tonight. You are on the river. The river is carrying you very gently in its own slow and reliable way, exactly where rest is waiting. The last things, the houseboat sits at its mooring, its hull moving very gently on the river's slow current. Margaret is sleeping in the stern cabin. The notebook is in the galley drawer. The canvas chairs are on the front deck, slightly damp now with the river's evening dew. The vegetable pots sleep on the back deck. The dinghy bumps very softly against the hull. The solar panels wait for morning. The fishing rod leans against the rail. The corellas sleep in the red gums above, their extraordinary communal warmth filling the branches in complete and finally achieved quiet. The azure kingfisher is somewhere on a branch in the dark, waiting for morning's fishing. The platypus is somewhere in the shallow water upstream, its ancient body going about its ancient business, entirely regardless of any human presence or absence nearby. The Murray turtles are somewhere below the surface, their slow patience unchanged from the patience of their ancestors millions of years before this night. The Murray cod is somewhere in the deep water beneath the mooring. The river moves steadily, slowly, south-southwest downstream toward the lakes and the sea, carrying the tannins of 1,000 red gum forests, carrying the memory of every rain that fell on every catchment in every year since this channel was first cut by water, finding its own level in this ancient, flat, wide country. The river is moving slowly, south-southwest, as it has always moved. The houseboat sits gently at its mooring, its lines holding it in the current. Margaret is sleeping, the river rocking her very gently, as it has rocked her every night for 11 years. The corellas are sleeping, finally, gloriously, completely silent. The red gums stand on the opposite bank, pale in the dark, patient, their roots reaching down to the permanent water below. The azure kingfisher is on its branch, waiting for morning. The notebook is in the drawer. Tomorrow's entry, not yet written. The morning will bring mist on the water and the light coming up slowly behind the eastern gums, and the corellas waking again, loudly, joyfully, without apology. You are held tonight too by this same slow, brown-green, patient river, by the enormous southern sky above it, by the red gums standing their ancient watch, by the sound of the water finding its way downstream, as it has always found its way. You do not need to go anywhere tonight. The river will carry you, as it carries everything, slowly, steadily, without hurry. You are safe. You are warm. You are held. On the houseboat, on the Murray, in the inland Australian dark. The river will keep it steady moving all through the night. The stars will keep their watch above it. And you can simply rest. Good night, dear friend. Sleep well. Sleep deeply. Good night.